Joined by the Chief of the Colorado State Patrol, Matthew Packard. Thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm glad to be here.
So I'm guessing that most of the people watching this are going to be on a Colorado highway pretty soon. Who or what do you think is the greatest threat to their safety?
Themselves, frankly. It's driving is probably the most dangerous thing the common person does every day, and it's worthy of some heartfelt, undivided attention, and that's really what I want to talk about.
So I have what I think is kind of this like nerdy conversation with my wife when she's leaving for the day. You know, this is the most dangerous thing you're going to do today. You know, and she rolls her eyes at me and says, "Oh, love you," and that's the end of the day. It sounds like you've had this conversation with people as well.
Yeah, every day. It's kind of my job, and you know, it's predictable. But that's the problem: is the conversation, the expectation that a state trooper are going to tell you to drive safe. I think that message is numbed, and I'm trying to convince people that it shouldn't be.
Do you think maybe there's some overlap between what you guys do and what we do, in the sense that people are so locked on to getting information, whatever information is, whether it's a text or a video or a photo or news or weather or whatever, that they're used to just kind of getting in their veins 24/7. Do you see that?
Yeah, I think it's all inclusive, and it's not just phones. There's always something to grab your attention, and we need to train people to understand, to resist that. That when you're driving a car, that's what matters most at that moment.
So how do you do it? You legislate it? You make some appeal to people emotionally? I mean, certainly both have been tried. What do you think?
I think it's a human being issue, and I think we can make all the laws that we want. We'll write as many tickets, but I don't want to write any of those. It's a recognition that your life matters, and it is the attention to driving that's going to keep your life. And that's it's a personal thing. It's not about tickets or arrests. It's about your well-being and the people in your community's well-being.
Do you think people are actually cognizant of the fact that they're risking their own lives, or do they just think that they're risking everybody else's?
I think that's the problem. I don't think they recognize not only that they're risking their own, but they are risking other people's, and other people are risking theirs as well. And that's why it's so important that they speak up. Make an investment in your own safety, and that's really what we're asking.
So how do we move the needle on this, besides just having conversations like the ones that my family's had, or the conversation that you're having with me here today?
I think it's easy to talk about numbers, and numbers paint a picture, but they don't feel anything. And maybe we talk about those personal stories, have those times when, as a trooper, that I've delivered news that nobody ever wants to hear, and talk about how you talk about to the grocery store, and the trip to and from is assumed that it's going to be safe until it's not. And we need to remember that.
Vehicles are getting safer. Are Colorado's roads getting safer?
I think everyone's working really hard, but it's still the common component is personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Do you get the sense that if you told people Colorado's roads are not safer than they were a few years ago, that people would blame you guys?
I don't know. Well, I can tell you, we asked them that in a survey, and they tell us that they feel the roads aren't as safe as they used to be. And I think there's a lot that goes into that. We're a component of that, but we need everybody. There's millions of people driving on those roads, and it's everybody's responsibility.
Let's talk about some other topics. This one is associated with safety. CSP has had 5 line-of-duty deaths since 2015, 4 troopers and a cadet struck by vehicles while doing other work along the roads. I know that you guys are hesitant to close the roads for crash investigations, but is it time to do it more often to protect the lives of your men and women?
I think the safety of all lives are what's important to us, and certainly we like to say that I work for the State Patrol and I save lives, and that includes our own. But it's a decision that we need to make every time, and it's a balance. We also know that when we close roads that other people are put at risk. We're just moving that risk farther down the road. So what we're appealing for is everybody needs to be cognizant. Troopers, firefighters, tow truck drivers, motorists, everybody needs to be cognizant of what's going on the road, and that's ultimately what's going to make us safer.
But no change in protocol or direction to your men and women about how often to close roads to give your people buffer zones?
I think we're always trying to learn and be better. And one of the things that we're doing is first responder safety and helping to provide some guidance. And really what we're trying to do is reduce exposure. I want the men and women of the Colorado State Patrol to minimize the exposure to oncoming traffic and to any other threat that's in their way.
So with the last line of duty death that you guys had on I-70 out near Deer Trail, there was a plan to close down the highway, go out there in the evening hours, and take a look at that crash scene again. We told people about it on the news, and then that was called off at the last minute. I don't know that I ever get an explanation of why that happened. Why didn't you guys go out there and close down the highway?
We weren't ready to do it. We ultimately did it again. We did it on another night.
Okay, so it was just a matter of postponing it at that point.
It was for that specific investigation to do a recreation.
Is there something specific intangible that you have told your people following these line of duty deaths that they need to start doing differently, something that the public could understand?
Not so much do differently, and I want to emphasize that there's always something that we can learn. And personal accountability on all levels is important. And our troopers need to make sure that they're being cognizant of their safety. Motorists need to make sure they're cognizant of not only their own safety, but those around. But that's really where we are in this. We're still learning. We don't know everything that we want to know. But every accident happens. In any incident, it's incumbent upon all of us to learn and make sure that we try not to make the same mistake twice.
And we should probably note as well that just because there's an incident where a trooper is struck and injured or struck killed does not necessarily mean that a motorist did anything wrong. There are a number of variables out there.
There's always a conversation about a legal liability and all those things. But there's crashes happen, and we investigate those to determine so we can prevent them from happening again.
Let's talk about mountain traffic. What is within your purview to do to improve the situation on I-70, especially around the weekends?
First and foremost is encourage safe driving, but we talk about traffic incident management. It's a partnership that we have with CDOT that we work to move incidents out of the traffic as soon as we possibly can, to minimize, again, our exposure, but to keep traffic flowing and encourage safe and responsible driving to do that.
So having the express lane on 70 open on occasion does give drivers one possible outlet if you're willing to pay for it. Does it make your job more difficult in terms of clearing crashes?
I think the more lanes, the more traffic we have, but it doesn't resolve the issue of being responsible. So I've been in that toll lane before. Mm-hmm. We just need to be cognizant of the differences in speed, but ultimately it comes down to just pay attention, because the alternative is so undesirable. It really is.
Every winter we have the same conversation with people about making sure that they have proper tires or chains to get up there. What's stopping CSP from putting somebody at every major on-ramp and physically checking every vehicle as they get on while they're being metered onto the highway?
It's not. I'm guessing that's not the best use of our resource. I don't think that's the best use of our resource right now. And even we can encourage people to tell them what appropriate equipment is. We can provide them resources. We work closely with CDOT to provide the measuring tools and partnerships with private companies. But again, that's not the only problem. We don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. There's a lot of different ways. But again, it comes down to people being thoughtful when they get in a car, and that's thoughtful about their driving, whether they're sober, whether they're going to pick up a distraction, and make sure that they've got an appropriate vehicle that's equipped the right way to travel.
It seems anecdotally, at least, that society is beginning to come to grips with the issue of impaired driving, drunk driving specifically, more societal responsibility around that. Do the numbers bear that out in Colorado? So
we've made more impaired driving arrests this year than we did last year.
Is that a factor of population or people's choices, you think?
That's maybe both. I don't have that specific breakdown, but what I can tell you, my concern is people, I might argue with you. I think people are willing. I don't think people realize how easily it is to be impaired. And I think it is acceptable at some level, whatever the substance, to maybe a little bit is enough, or maybe it's not too much. And that's just not the case. Driving a car, you need to be stone cold sober. It's worthy of that level of attention.
A little impaired is impaired.
Yeah.
Colorado State Patrol was one of the last two agencies within the state of Colorado years ago to partner directly with federal immigration agents to enforce federal immigration law. The concern was human trafficking on the highways, the 287G program. Trump administration has brought that back. You guys haven't participated in it in years. Do you think that partnering up with ICE would help you deal with human trafficking on our highways?
It's our purview is highway safety, and that's what we're working on, and that's really what draws us to the program initially was the highway safety impact to that, and that's where our focus is right now.
But you don't have any interest in getting back into that. They would provide you guys with training on how to spot human trafficking, that kind of thing.
We look into human smuggling and human trafficking, but that's on state purview. That's where we are.
All right. And then lastly, we've had a tough time getting an answer out of the governor about whether or not he might ever direct CSP to enforce Colorado's red flag gun control law. If it came to that, you got a bunch of conservative sheriffs that say that they won't do it. Is that something that you guys have the manpower to do if so ordered?
That's a conversation the governor and I have not had. That's not where, but again, our primary focus is public safety on the highways right now.
All right. Chief Packard, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming in. Look forward to talking again.
Thanks, Kyle.
Subscribe to the Next YouTube channel for the best of Next and some other stuff.